using a circle of treble crochet stitches I made earlier as a base to put my single crochet stitches on. Before we start, I just want to mention the reason I have 2 chain stitches sitting below the working loop on my hook. Whenever you crochet rows that go up evenly, you need to bring the height of your new row up to the height of the crochet stitch you are about to make. There are 2 parts to a single crochet stitch. Let's do the first part. Insert your hook from the front to the back through the top of the next stitch. I am inserting my hook in between the top of the stitch and the base of the stitch. The top of the stitch has 2 loops of yarn, the bottom only has 1 loop. With your hook inserted through the top of the stitch, yarn over hook, catch the yarn with your hook, pull the hook back through the space in the stitch. You now have 2 working loops on your hook. That's the first part of the single crochet stitch completed. Let's do the second part. Yarn over hook, catch the yarn with your hook, pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. It's a little tricky to do this at first, and I'm a big fan of wiggling the crochet hook around to make a space so that you are able to cleanly pull the yarn through both loops. The single crochet stitch is now complete. You should have 1 working loop left on your hook. Let's make another one. Insert your hook through the top of the next stitch. Yarn over hook and pull through to make a second loop. Yarn over hook, pull through both loops on the hook. You have 1 working loop left on your hook. We're going to make some more single crochet stitches, but this time I'm going to insert the crochet hook into the space in between the stitches of the previous row. Some patterns will ask you to work your single crochet stitches into the top of the next stitch. Others will ask you to work your single crochet stitches into the space in between. So you need to know how to work a single crochet stitch both ways. Insert your hook through the space in the gap between the 2 stitches on the previous row. Yarn over hook, catch the yarn with your hook, pull the hook back through the gap. You now have 2 working loops on your hook. Yarn over hook, catch the yarn with your hook, pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Insert your hook through the space in the gap between the 2 stitches on the previous row. Yarn over hook, catch the yarn with your hook, pull the hook back through the gap. You now have 2 working loops on your hook. Yarn over hook, catch the yarn with your hook, pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Of course, some patterns can be very vague and will just say something like, work 10 single crochet stitches into next row. This doesn't really help you all that much when deciding if you should make the single crochet stitch in the top of the previous row's stitch or in the gap between the 2 stitches. If I find myself reading a pattern that doesn't have clear instructions, I tend to try doing the stitch both ways and then decide which stitch looks better. One last tip. It's about our 2 chain stitches that we made at the start of our row. When working a pattern, these 2 chain stitches are also counted as the first single crochet. For example, my pattern says something like, start new row with 10 single crochet stitches in the gap between the previous row's stitches. Here's a convenient sample I prepared earlier. Let's count how many single crochet stitches I have. 1. You can see these are the 2 chain stitches I made at the start of the row. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oops, I have 1 too many. I'll just undo this last stitch. Put my working loop back onto my hook and I'm ready to go back to my pattern and work the next instruction. That's it, you're all set to make single crochet stitches.